to have a smaller lot than is generally allowed. And also we need to permit for unit lot subdivision.
Okay, that's it. I'll just, if there's any way to maybe get a mini digest earlier or something helpful, but otherwise all good. Cool, but fantastic on the grant.
Okay. Yes, Anna.
What is a unit lot subdivision?
This is a slightly new, slightly confusing new subdivision type that we must allow. So regular subdivision, you subdivide a lot into two completely separate lots. A unit lot subdivision is kind of like the marriage between a regular subdivision and a condominiumization. Condominiumization is just the residential unit, but the property is shared in common. Unit lot subdivision, to get to the question, is the unit and portions of the land, but you remain connected to the parent lot. So future development applies to the parent lot also, not just individual unit lots. So we're required to have them, but it's mostly maybe to address maybe like townhouse type development.
Do we have time for an additional follow-up question?
Of course.
Okay. So when we were talking before my district tour, before this bill had passed, the only opportunity for cluster housing as home ownership was condominiumization. But now, could that be affected by the unit lot subdivision?
It's just another tool in the toolbox. So development comes in different shapes and colors. This is just another option for them to choose. I don't think that it will have an effect on cluster development unless they choose to use this specialty type of subdivision instead of the regular process.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff?
And I echo Jeff that it would be great to get updates before June, because so happy about this.
Yeah.
If possible. And if these folks are coming in to help, if it's possible to update the schedule that's on Bremerton 2044, I know it's been pushed out due to the middle housing bill. I think that'd be helpful as well if we can get that updated. Received. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah. Counselors, consent?
Consent.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Have a safe drive, Mr. Jackson.
I believe he walks sometimes. Sometimes I see him walking home after these meetings, by the way. Okay, the next one, I guess I'm here to present on them. And I suppose, let's see, the 2024-2025 council goals and priorities were discussed at the joint planning session are being presented so that any final changes can be made. And discussion on the related action steps will be scheduled for an upcoming study session. I don't have a presentation for this because I actually was expecting that they had been emailed. Were these emailed?
Well, there's a list of them in the packet. Yeah.
So let's just refer to our packet. So I don't have a presentation is what I'm saying, but we already had the presentation all day. And so this is just without the action steps, and Vice President Mockler and I are going to meet up on Friday to talk about our next study session where we'll discuss action steps to go along with those. But does anybody have any feedback on how it's presented here in the packet? This is exactly verbatim as we discussed them and agreed in the joint planning session.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
And if we add action steps, it's going to be a whole lot more.
And
I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity to, we've kind of been through this. I've been looking through it. I'm just wondering if anybody sees any way to streamline it at all, or
so on Friday, I mean, this is an option we might be able to take. You and I might be able to look at these and see if we can combine and condense anything. do you want to try that on Friday and then we can bring it back for approval? How does everybody else feel about it? Or do we just want to roll with it?
Some of these are.
Anna?
Okay, hang on, I'll be as brief as,
No.
no, that's hard for me. But I'll be as brief as possible. I'm looking at the mayor's initiatives, and those are what, 4 pages?
Mhm.
So I think,
Way
actually,
too long.
that,
Anyway, yeah,
We have 2 years.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I think that I think that this should be expanded to include as many action items as possible. Because action items are the things that we can look at, like, I'm just picking one at random, support funding for low-income housing development by working with community partners. Well, how are we gonna bell that cat? Or is it just something that as it comes up, we will support? But to look through it and to use all the information that 7 intelligent, committed, tenacious people possess, and plus all of the advice so freely given by not only Bremerton residents, but City of Bremerton staff and employees. I think we could actually develop things that we could work on that wouldn't be, these are very high, what do you guys call it?
You know what?
40,000 foot?
Anna, can you hang on to this for a second while I step out of the room and grab that binder?
Okay.
Okay, you're in charge. Well, I'll be right back.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to. So,
Jane, go ahead.
so some of these are just like lofty goals, you know? Continue to support Main Street. Continue to work with the Chamber of Commerce. Well, we do that all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
So not everything needs an action item. But there are some things that, do need action to move
By
forward.
council.
Yes. And then also, it's a really good list that I think we should make sure the public can see, and the public's gonna have big suggestions on how we can move certain things forward, because 95% of this, it's things that the public asks us to do or to look into. So by having this inclusive list, I think is a good thing. And then, we can take a chunk of it at a time. And we have 2 years to do this and then add things on.
As long as we're focusing on what is our role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I want to, that's why I can, continue to support. I think that's really important because that's a commitment to the support of things that are going on in the community. As long as we go through this, sometimes when things are too long and too detailed, it gets lost.
Well, there's a lot of superfluous words in here too.
Maybe
That we can-
I just want to make sure that we and our committees, it's our lane, that it's our lane. And
So just really quick, I brought this book out. Denise, if you wanted to take a look at it, or anybody else, these are past council goals and priorities. And you can see actually how expansive they are. So this is actually, and I think, I don't know, we could possibly wordsmith some of this and edit it. I know Anna loves editing, but Jeff, go right ahead. I'm going to pass this book around. Denise, do you want to take a look at it?
sure.
Yeah, there
It's
you
really
go.
edifying. It's really
No,
educational.
Sorry, go right ahead.
No, you're not good. I think if there's any way for the wordsmithing to keep them or make them more smart goals. Not all it can be, but definitely support. The reason I did this layout last year was for that readability. That I agree. If it's just a long list of items, I think people's eyes kind of gloss over. Wait, what are you working on? And so that's why I kind of did this one with the right pastel colors for each of the categories. You can see these are our main categories we're focusing on, and then the action items below them. And so I'm happy to share the Word doc template for this if you want to take a similar approach or do it different, obviously all good, but that's kind of why specifically I did this, so that at a glance, the public could kind of see, oh, here's the high level stuff. And then you can stare at it more and see, oh, here's the low level, here's the individual action items.
Thank you for that offer. Council, it sounds like we're not ready to present this as an action item at the next council meeting. Are we? I don't know that I have general consensus
Oh,
to
adopt.
adopt these as they are.
Is this the final form?
That's what I'm presenting. So, I'm looking for general consensus or a general feeling of this needs to be worked on and come back for another.
I don't have any problem with it as presented, but I think as we have little breakout sections on it, like maybe one night at a study session, we do parks and environmental stewardship. And so I think they're gonna get defined more tightly of, what is an action item, or is it just our general support of certain things? Like we can't on our own increase public safety funding, but we can support our public safety divisions and listen to their ideas and figure out what we can do to help them
I
do
think
that.
that's one thing that we can do. Is increase public safety funding as a council.
So this is a great discussion for when we talk about the action items.
Action item.
And we absolutely want to come back to it and develop action items for these. So
I feel really comfortable with y'all going through it. Just one, your two heads and like
okay.
making sure there's no redundant. Oh, that's kind of out of, whatever.
We can wordsmith the heck out of this, can't we, Anna? Jeff?
Was the proposed plan to have one document that's the goals and priorities and another one that's action items, or to
Yeah.
update? Okay.
So there would be one separate list of the council goals and priorities. And then an addendum or an additional document would have things broken down and divided possibly by committees. So that would be, if you look in the book, there's a couple different formats for that. And so I'm going to wait and work with Vice President Mockler on what we present to you for that.
Okay, so more like a work plan.
Point of order, Council President.
Oh, point of order.
The Council President prefers the use of first names at study sessions.
That is super true. And so I guess, and welcome, Michael. What we're doing is discussing the goals and priorities, and I'm going to let you settle in, but I think we're going to take a stab at wordsmithing it and bring it back for adoption at another meeting. Okay. So with that, we have action on, we know what we're going to do for that. Yeah, Anna.
Real quick. So some of these, and here I'm truly asking, it seems that it's almost like there's an extremely 30,000-foot level of stuff that we can't, really do all on our own. Like we can't, we're supporting the development of Jarstad Park to Kitsap Lake Trail, but is there an action item associated? Never mind. This was not well thought through, so I'm just gonna stop.
We'll talk on Friday,
Okay.
and then we'll be able to figure out. Yeah,
I'd
Michael.
just say historically, the goals have been more of a higher altitude, conceptual. It's basically saying things we believe in as opposed to like a work plan. I'm not saying one is right or wrong, but it's clearly going to be things that we can't actually do. But the way we signal our support to everybody is by putting it there. I guess that one would be a priority, and the other ones would be goals.
I'm looking forward to having this. Whoa, where'd you go?
She was that way.
Okay, well, wherever she went, invisible woman in the chair. Looking forward to having a good deep conversation with her and bringing something back to you all. Okay. So we'll put this forward to a future study session. All right, so next up, we have City Attorney Kylie Fennell and Human Resources Manager Charlotte Nelson here to present item B1, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program update and discussion on position recommendations.
Thank you. Thanks again, Council, for putting this on the agenda and hopefully keeping it on the agenda for a while as we work through bringing this position on board, which I know everyone is excited about. Last study session, we had the presentation from our consultants, and this presentation is really sort of outline next steps. Also, we've provided you with some data. It's a bit of a data dump. Don't want to go over all that. I don't want to overwhelm you guys tonight with that, but I wanted to hit high level of what we're looking for from council for kind of the head nod on what direction you want to move forward on this. Some of the recommendations that you heard last study session from our consultant were that the city use an outside recruiting agency. And we've done that for positions in the past, but that's not something that the council has authorized or talked about yet for this position. HR manager Charlotte Nelson does also recommend that as well. And so we would like the go ahead, kind of the head nod from council that you want us to do that, to use an outside recruiting firm for that. We would go through an RFP, not RFQ process for that. And we would be looking for someone who would have community engagement as a part of that recruitment, as well as employee engagement, so that that's done in accordance with the recommendations that were made by our consultant, which were informed by the feedback they received from the community and our staff. So Director Riley has indicated that really just a head nod tonight on that point would be sufficient, and it can be addressed with a mid-year budget adjustment. So that's kind of one thing to talk about tonight.
I'm so sorry. I just got some bad news in my email.
Sorry.
No worries.
Okay, so that's kind of the easy one. I was hoping we can get at least a head nod or not so much, if that's the direction, so that we can kind of start adjusting on that. Included in your packet were some information about what other cities are doing. That's something that we always look at when we're creating a new position, because obviously this is a paid position and we want to see where we're going to be, much we're going to be compensating the person. So that was complicated for this, because one, we wanted to gather the information for a director as well as a manager. So if you'll recall, council approved this in the budget as a manager level, and the recommendation from our consultant is at a director level. Don't need to make that decision tonight. You just got a lot of information, and I think we're going to be talking about that more in the coming weeks, but that's a decision we're going to need to make. You'll look at what we provided as comparables. They're different than our regular comparables, and there's a reason for that. A lot of comparably sized cities don't have either of these positions, much less one at a director level or manager level. So we went bigger. So you'll see in some of the data brackets that Charlotte provided that it's a population. So you'll see that these are larger cities. They're not the ones that we usually look at, but that's okay. We wanted to find the positions that match sort of what we were hearing from our consultant with what we needed, and get those figures in front of council so you can see what that looked like. We also pulled some job descriptions that seemed in line with what was being recommended, and have those on there for consideration. The draft job description was essentially what's in the proposed by the consultant. But it's a lot of information, but like I said, I think what would be best is if we could get a head nod or a head shake on the consultant or the outside recruiter. That person is going to have some expertise in crafting the job description that you will still ultimately approve, but it would allow us to go ahead and get started on that process, and then have maybe something to bring to council for approval before it goes, of course, out. So that's just kind of the high-end overview. I didn't want to get bogged down in all of the research that Charlotte did. It's thorough. You'll see that a lot of several cities have reorganized these positions recently. Some of them have reorganized into an overarching communications position and or in kind of been absorbed into as a kind of a specialist position within human resources or something like that. And so that's noted in a graph, but otherwise, we're happy to answer any questions that people have, or if you have another direction that you'd like to go. But the way what I'm suggesting is that we at least get that piece of the recruiter, that recommendation rolling, and then we can address the other recommendations about it, a director versus manager, and in a later study session after you've had a chance to kind of look at all the information that was provided this week.
Okay, so she made it even easier for us. So we have time to process the information that Charlotte sent to us. We got it yesterday morning, I believe. And so it's really a great idea for us to have a little more time to process it.
Sure, and so you know how that works is all this information is not just readily available. You have to dig,
Yeah.
you have to call people
Yeah.
and hope that they get back to you. So we were holding off on publishing to get more in so that we could provide as much as possible. There's still some outstanding, including Kitsap County hasn't gotten back to us. They have a new position. And so we went ahead and so you'll note some of them have like a red box. That just means we didn't get the job description.
And so we really only need to give you the head nod. And I didn't mean to say like, oh, we only got it yesterday, because I know the process that you've been going through to obtain all the information for us, because this is complicated. We have a recommendation from the consulting firm to have it at a director level. Some of the public wants us to have it at a director level. At the same time, there are other examples where it's at a manager level. Something we might need to think about is the term, a parity of positions. So what do our directors do differently than managers in the city? How many employees are under them? Things like that. So we're going to take some time, it sounds like, if that's all right with you all, and process that information. Unless you want to have a discussion on that now. I think first and foremost, do we want to talk about the talent agency, outside recruiting agency? Do you want to talk about that first?
I don't have any pushback on that. I would like to know how much normally does a recruitment of this kind cost the city?
It's been a while since we've done one. I think the last one was 25,000.
Okay.
So it's probably
Just good to know going in.
And I think in our report, it said like 30 to something thousand. So,
I appreciate the expertise, the level of expertise that a recruiting firm can bring to the recruitment of this position. As long, and you mentioned, they will be engaged with our community in the process. And so that'll always be a caveat, I think, especially with this position.
And that's what we've seen with our public safety positions. I know that the mayor has run those before, and it involves meetings where meet the candidates and that kind of thing, in the council chambers for the public to come in and be engaged in the process. And that's what we would expect here.
everybody's hands are up. So go right ahead, y'all. You can look at each other, make eye contact, and figure out who would like to go.
I'll be first. So one thing that would be helpful for me to figure out how these different cities compare to us or compare to the jobs. If you could just add a little note what the population of the city is and how many employees are in each city. I don't remember seeing
We've
that.
got population on there, but we can add number of workers. That's a data point that you can probably gather from AWC.
That's the easiest.
Yeah. So if you look, Jane, it's a column right under the position title on the graphs.
The one that's longer.
I was just looking at the dollars.
Oh,
Yeah, look above wage. I know.
dollars are phenomenal.
That's the thing is it, I mean, like Snohomish County, it's 859,000.
Population.
Yeah, so, and just to explain how the graphs work, if you look at it, there's one for manager level, there's one for director level. It
Gotcha.
gives the entity, and it gives the bottom
Oh.
salary first and the top end salary second, so that you can see what entry level is and what highest, paid is. So ours run on an 8-year scale. So, other agencies have different scales. So you just look at where
Top and bottom.
top and bottom are. So that's how those work.
So we had Jeff not on next eye contact.
I was just sitting.
Oh, you did have your hand up?
No, I was.
Oh, Jeff.
Okay. Well, I think, my biggest priority is just making sure that, as you said, the community's engaged, especially those who are prior on REAC.
Mhm.
And even more in particular, those who have currently applied to the new REAC or we think may apply. So I guess is there's a consensus that going to an outside agency hire will actually make that easier to get that input from the community versus doing it internal.
Yes.
Well, that makes sense to me. And thanks for all the material. I think it's fantastic. The only thing I'd say in the looking through them compared to what's written up for Bremerton, and I know it's something to change, is the Bremerton one at the moment doesn't explicitly mention council. And I noticed like Kirtland said that the position has a duty to provide periodic and written and oral updates to council and policy recommendations, and Olympia as well. So the final one making that clear that we
Sure.
do want that person to be providing us updates and recommendations would be fantastic.
Sure. I think that can be more explicit. I think where it's encapsulated in this one, because Jeff, we talked about that earlier, but it has React top, and when the council's created the React ordinance for the commission, and I think it's React's mission is to advise the council, and the duty of this person is to facilitate React in their work. And so my guess is it would be joint reports is what I would imagine that it would be. React would be making a recommendation and be facilitated, in that with the manager / director.
Sure.
So,
I can imagine cases where there's also just a direct, like, hey, I got some experience and
that makes sense. I will point out though, in our ordinance for React, it does have it as a manager. So that is not a problem. If anyone's concerned about that, I can amend that just like that. So if we decide to go with a director, I will be happy to go in and amend that so that it reflects the correct title.
So it sounds like do you want to?
Yeah. So, just want to be like clear as to the sort of the path the hire takes. So obviously, if we get a consultant, are we asking them for a small pool? And then who's reviewing that? Ultimately, we're talking about hiring a staff person for administration for the mayor. And so, we want to make sure that, that it's a good addition to the mayor's team, right? So I just want to, like, how is that, is it like most where the mayor makes a recommendation and we sort of approve
So
it?
I think that will be how it follows. That's how it is in our code for new director positions, that the mayor will appoint, similar to how all of the directors got their positions. If it's a manager, it might not come to council for appointment. So that's maybe something to consider. I don't know that it is necessarily prohibited though. So that's a question I could maybe look into, whether you could just draft it that way. But directors are generally appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council. And so you've gone through the recruitments before. I know that they usually get, there's a casting a wide net. Nationwide search type thing is usually what the recruiting agencies do. And then you get down to some final candidates, and then there's a more engaged process with limited candidates. And I'm sure you guys have seen those with other, agencies and superintendents at schools and that kind of thing. And so that's how I think it would be, that there would be eventually a few candidates that you would all probably be engaged with in some way. A recommendation made by the mayor to council, the final one.
Michael, do you have another follow-up?
Well, I just, because a concern would just be making sure we really get the right person for this. But that person also has to be a really good fit.
Right.
And because it's the kind of position, you know, we could hire a director and months later say, you know what, we made a mistake. It's really hard to do with a position like this. We really have to get it right. It has to be somebody that the mayor and the HR and all those folks can really work well with and feels like it's the right thing. So I just want to make sure. I don't feel like I offer much. I mean, I can read a resume, but I think
Sure.
that
And
the
so-
cultural fit is going to be huge.
In the end, we're gonna end up getting a contract to approve. And so, we'll be able to look at the contract and make recommendations for the process. Am I incorrect in that
For
assumption?
the
Consultant.
For the consultant.
Not necessarily, actually, so,
Oh,
no, you wouldn't need to, it would be.
The dollar amount's too minimal.
Amount.
We want to come back. And
We
we can make a budget amendment. We were just gonna do that mid-year, give you a on now, move forward the process. You could ask us to bring that back if you want to, but.
And I-
Not want to.
Yeah,
I think what I'm hearing are two different things. So, and Michael wants to make sure that it's a good fit for the mayor, which is very valid. You want to have a good teammate, you know, that's going to be a good fit within your departments, but also what I heard Jeff say is the importance of the community involvement in the selection of this director and the community feedback. What is the process? Are we implementing the process for hiring that was recommended by the consultant, for instance? Right? So I think that's where I'm going with, are we going to be, can we revisit this when we have somebody chosen, even though it's under our threshold?
yes, yeah, so if you want, that's the mayor's contracting authority is given to him by the council. I mean, under the charter, it make us come to the council to buy pencils. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So,
Please don't.
no, but.
Do you even
Those
use
thresholds-
Pens maybe.
I do, I
Yeah.
use pencils all the time. What I'm saying is if you want to maintain some authority over looking at what we're putting out for RFP with regard to the process, right? We can absolutely, I don't, bring that back, for council for review. It very, you know, because if that's the case, though, I would at least ask for a little bit of leeway, because to do that at next study session is gonna be a push.
Yeah.
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 Voted like tomorrow or I mean
Okay.
Friday, so.
Anna, you had your hand up there. Patiently.
I did. So, we understand that this is gonna cost us 30 grand or more to send it out to a recruitment firm. Salute. What's gonna, is that going to delay the movement forward towards towards actually hiring someone any more than it would if we did it in-house?
No, I mean, I think it will
Okay.
ultimately facilitate it. I mean, the recruitment firms are professionals, and I think that it was, one, it was recommended by the other consultant. They had a specific recommendation. I would like to do an RFP to make sure that, you know, that kind of
Okay.
transparency is followed. But I think ultimately with the staff, with what we have going on right now and the level of public engagement and things, that we would be better served by in expediency and going with it.
Okay. I guess my big question here is, I am philosophically disagreeing with the idea that this person should be a good fit. It's almost inconceivable to me that there could be a superhuman who can be saying, these attitudes you have got to go. Here's how inclusion works. Here's how we embrace moving forward. Here's how we have the difficult, uncomfortable conversations. I can see somebody being like pretty superhuman, but you'd have to be completely superhuman in order to have that be your job, is to be constantly addressing
I agree with that.
these serious plaints that both the workforce and the community have. And at the same time, be, you know, somebody you want to hang out with and find charming and,
Yeah.
or all of that stuff.
I mean, you just gave very extreme examples, but
I'm probably the first time you've ever heard that from me, Michael. But
Shane was, after
everything
you.
you're saying is valid. I
Yeah.
completely agree.
yeah,
But instead of here and here, I'm thinking it's here and here.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm just saying
I
that
know the purpose of this.
I know you do. I'm looking at the things that the workforce are saying about how they are afraid to go to their managers. They're afraid to go to their directors. They conceal their identities. They are listening to homophobic and misogynistic and
That stuff you're hearing about our city?
in
That was
this
in the report.
yes.
It was in the report.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It was really a bit devastating to me how widespread it was. I saw virtually nothing that said, I feel accepted and there's a culture of belonging.
Well, to be fair, I don't think that that's how this consulting firm is set. I think that this consulting agency, their job was to find the problems, not to find the things that are
Happy
working well. So they found the problems all right. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a great thing. So all the problems are identified, but, and so that's where we're going from here.
Okay, the consulting agency wasn't trying to find out the truth of the situation. They were looking for problems only.
Yeah. Otherwise, why would we need a DEI if we had a great culture, right?
I guess looking at the truth
A
would be
perfect culture.
a good predicate, and then like looking at the entire spectrum. I mean, if all we're hearing is like those voices which feel oppressed and disregarded and overlooked, how do we know that this is the dominant situation, the majority situation?
Not at all.
So let me bring it back to the
majority.
let me bring it back to the question at hand, which is how do we want to treat a head nod or not a head nod for doing an RFP,
Sure.
not a queue, for the consulting agency? I want to get kind of a consensus.
I'm good
I
with
got one more question.
I
Okay.
have some questions.
Oh, let me defer to Jane first, and then we'll go to you, Jeff.
I'd like to finish when I get a chance.
Okay, so I was a public employee for almost 40 years, and every couple, 3 years, we would get some survey, and depending on how pissed you were at your last evaluation, you would fill out the form differently, right? So they asked all the employees if they wanted to come talk. The majority of the people who are gonna say yes are people who have issues. And I'm not saying it's not widespread. There was a lot of people who apparently did feel uncomfortable, and that needs to change. And I also agree that we're not going to find some superhuman that is going to work well with the culture of Bremerton employees, because culture needs some improvement, right? But that doesn't mean, that's why it's both the community and another committee that they'll be part of the hiring process, but not the only, because you could have one angry person just say, none of these people are any good. And I think it makes perfect sense to have an outside firm. I mean, it'd be like if we never had a public works department and all of a sudden Charlotte was tasked with hiring 15 engineers. It's brand new. It's not a field that's been recognized for a long time either. So having a specialty firm look for candidates, I think, is the way to go.
So what did Jeff, and then Anna, you can finish your thought, and we'll do a general consensus of where we're at. Okay, because I feel like most of us are in favor of a head nod, and
Yeah, I'm on board, but I think Michael asked a good question. I thought I missed the answer, which is are we thinking specifics at the moment of they would bring one person that would go through the confirmation process, 3 that then would be whittled down, or is that to be determined?
Go ahead.
Can I just say
Yeah, Charlotte has.
So normally when you hire someone from the outside to come and do it, they're going to involve council, they're going to involve the mayor, public, city leaders. And there's stuff, it's like an assessment center. So you're going to have one interview going in the mayor's office, and it's like three different steps they go through. So we're going to need a lot of people to participate in it. So you will get your say. Someone from
And so they'd have the pool of candidates, they'd slowly do their whittling down, like normal hiring process, be talking to us, mayor, community members. And then they would basically say, this is the person we want to make an offer to, or
Yeah, and they're only gonna send you the top qualifying applicants. They're not gonna send you 30 or 40.
Right, yeah.
You'll probably get.
Yeah, they'll do their initial screening. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, would we go through all the interviews and then they say, this is the top person we recommend, or they say, we recommend you pick among these top 3?
Usually the groups come to end up coming to a consensus at the end. So
So we would
That's
work with council and mayor and, okay,
that helps.
we'd have like a joint conversation at the end of the day. And
Yeah,
be like,
I mean,
"Hey,
it'll
think
be
we all
probably a
like
little
this
bit
one."
different. Have we had council panels before? But I thought we've done both, like, we would have 3 council members.
There was, there's,
I don't think it's done in,
but
like,
you're on
there's some,
different, aren't they on different teams though? Because so they're not creating a quorum.
like I said, it's a good reason why we hire the outside professionals, but also it's been a bit since we've done it.
I think there's enough detail. I feel very comfortable.
I feel like-
that shakes out. Yeah.
And I feel like the outside agency will probably be able to articulate their process to us.
Right.
We will be
Yeah.
asking them, won't we?
They're-
So I don't really want to, I don't want to ask you to speculate on what somebody's going to do that we haven't even hired, because each might have their own process. So council, how do we feel? Do you want to give the head nod for this? Yes, Anna, go right ahead.
Thank you. Just, yes, I do. The question I do want to ask though is, I've worked for City of Seattle and I've worked for King County and I've worked for City of New York, and I'm really familiar with the survey process Jane's describing here, where it's like, if you're in the middle of your job and, everything's going good for you, you're not going to go show up for this. I do want to ask, have the bulk of employees been shown these responses? Have they had an opportunity to say, yeah, I hear a lot of that?
They all received the report. But I haven't.
Yeah.
It's on the website too, with the public.
Yeah, it's on the website. And I think, I know individual directors with their teams and talking about it. It's, good. And yeah, it's available. The mayor sent it out to every employee and in mail, the mayor's scheduling meetings to meet with people.
Thanks. That's the end of my question. Thanks very much for your answers.
Okay, head nod received. And you'll come back to us with more information. We'll talk about the title, whether or not here's a couple of things that we need to kind of look and talk about at a future meeting are, what kind of title do we want this professional to have, and whether we want to allocate a manager or director level pay grade to this person. You're welcome to take a look at the job description. My understanding on the job description itself is that it's a combination of the recommendations directly from the consultant report. And I went through and I looked at that as well. So there are direct recommendations in there, as well as some of the things that other cities have done. I really like what Jeff did with recommending one change. So next time we come and talk about this, we can make recommendations. However, I would be worried about making too many changes that are outside of the scope of what the consultant recommended, right?
Mhm.
So if you can do your due diligence and look at our consultant report recommendation for the job description while looking at the job description itself that we're proposing, that would be wonderful.
And I have a request and see what you guys think about this. And I'm sorry, I have not talked to either of you, but it just made me think. We have something going on in public safety right now. I think it's been working really well. And that's the standing item on like camping and.
That'd be a great place to start.
Well, not like with the public safety, but I meant like on a study session, like I was just talking about like, if we were trying to get the RF.
Oh, okay.
Together
I see.
by the
Standing
next
item.
if we had it on, if I could just know that I could bring, like, I'm going to coordinate and that we can all expect that I might have the RFP for us to review, in the future, then I don't have to worry as much about like the specific
Planning for the agenda item.
deadlines. And I will definitely adhere to that whenever we're going to be asking for you to approve the job description. But as we're just moving along and giving
Okay.
updates, everyone else.
Counselors, are you good with that?
That's what we
Okay,
do.
and I know Christine is tuning in,
Yeah.
so she's already written that down.
I feel like that's been working, like to
Yeah.
get updates from whoever's there on that issue. And
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. All right. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna call a 5-minute break. Here's why. Okay, we've got pizza in the other room. Pizza party in the other room for 5 minutes. Anybody who wants a side, come on down. 5 minutes, we'll be back.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Okay, I bring the study session back to order. On the break, one of the counselors wanted me to clarify why there's pizza here. And it's because I lost a bet. I'm looking directly at you, public. I lost a bet. I said on 2 occasions, I believe, I really don't think that we're gonna get moved up in the biennium for this Warren Avenue Bridge project funding. And when I heard the news from administration, the first thing I thought is, oh crap, I'm gonna owe everybody pizza. So I'm delivering on that. Literally pizza
we're
delivery.
enjoying it.
Right? And so, good work to our legislators. Thank you, administration, and we lobbied, but also our lobbyists. And just the trust and the relationships that are built on that end. Were very impactful for us. We have $27 million allocated in 2 phases. 17 million in the 25-27 biennium, and 15 million in the next. And so we talked about at a February 14th, just a briefing, like an update on the Warren Avenue Bridge project. We decided after legislative session closed to come back and have a discussion regarding funding. So where we're at now is we did get a memorandum from Director Nucky on last Friday. And then just today, however, we got some other information from Councilor Coughlin and a response from Director Nucky. So we're all gearing and we're ready to have this discussion, and I'm happy to proceed with it. My only hesitation on it, folks, is we just got some pretty heavy information a couple hours before study session, which is something we have all complained about happening. And so I want to honor that, because if there are some folks that need to read and digest the information, I want to give them the opportunity. A presentation absolutely would still be welcome. But I wanted to first kind of find out, does everybody want to continue to have the conversation after Jeff gives a presentation? Still want to have rather than waiting for another study session?
Yes.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And Michael's just finding out that there was information sent. And Anna, are you okay with the conversation, or do you want to wait?
No, let's go.
Okay. So Jeff asked for a few minutes of time to present. So I'm going to ask, we all have the slides in our email. And so, yeah, go ahead and present away, but please do keep it to under 10 minutes if you can.
Sure.
So, okay.
Or we can go topic by, it's kind of organized by topic, so we could.
When you said topic
yeah.
by topic, do you mean slide by slide?
Yeah, basically.
What do you mean topic by topic? Explain to me what you're getting.
Possible funding, possible cost reduction, possible, it's basically side by slide. So either way, I can go through it all and then we can go back and I'll just go through it all and go back.
Yeah, just go. Yeah, go ahead through it all.
Sure.
Give us your presentation.
Perfect.
Very.
Yeah, thank you. And I
A lot of work
think,
into it.
yeah, talking about thanks. Yeah, huge thanks to our legislatures. And I know I heard from them that when they were making the pitch for this project to their fellow legislatures who they had to convince that this should be moved up in lieu of other projects, one of the compelling reasons was the community coming around, the community coming together around this alternative. And they said that was a really compelling story, and that the alternative we had was really, really compelling. So I think we should honor that of putting our heads together and looking at everything we can possibly do to move it forward as is before we even, in a future meeting, discuss other alternatives or changing a resolution. So with that in mind, we got a 75-page memo from SCJ Consulting about 5 minutes before our council meeting last week. So that was a lot of material to go through and digest and analyze, which is why I didn't get through it until yesterday. And then I had to check with Kylie to make sure it was okay to send out to everyone today. That's why I took an extra day. But yeah, with that, I'm going to see if we can share the the packet is up there.
Yeah, I don't have the
If not,
sharing
we can walk through
capabilities.
it.
We have it in our emails, but we'll add it to the packet for,
It's in the current packet right now for everyone
Perfect.
who's downloaded it. So the folks all have that and want to do it that way.
it should have been amended and so.
Yeah.
You have the packet you have your slides in the packet and we also have them by email.
Perfect. I will just pull it up.
Mike?
Perfect. I know.
Great.
Can't share.
Yay. I
Yeah,
don't
if you
know,
can share, that'd be great.
I don't know how to share, where we're sharing from his or,
You can share from here. You logged into the meeting.
I'm not logged in the
Oh,
meeting
we'll
on
get
my
you to share.
iPad,
There you go.
yeah.
don't,
There you go. So go to the browser for the applicants.
Or I can try pulling up my computer, but I can try sharing from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be able to go to Zoom, share it on Zoom.
Sorry, normally we have folks here set up to share the
okay,
packet, so.
it just came in so late.
Yeah.
That and then we have a reply as well, but they just came in so late. I think we've had this discussion in the past about when things come in late. So,
Well, there was the concern over OPMA about sending stuff ahead of time, which took a while to figure that out.
that's very valid.
So back to the original instruction was not to send anything ahead of time, so except to staff. Meeting. The center also has a laptop open. There we go. Only the host can share in this meeting.
We'll fix that. Close that out real quick. Oh, wait. So.
You should really get a.
Okay.
Should be good now for insurance.
Lesson.
There we go, okay.
Use this.
Can everybody see this? What's coming up? Like,
It will come up here once we did share.
does the public see how they can share their screen on Zoom now?
Your
It
question.
says I'm broadcasting. It says unable to share again. Why don't I try from the start? 3, 2, 1.
Pull the packet up on that. I can pull up my computer all.
Yeah, that'd be just as easy.
It might not be on the packet. It's not in the packet.
It's in the
So,
latest packet.
oh, good. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody said it wasn't in the packet, but
I don't see it in the current packet.
did
I
you?
just pulled it up again.
The brand new one?
Mm-hmm. All I see is Shane's, one pager.
Oh, yeah, Christine said it was.
I don't see it.
in there.
Mr. Error, always.
Yeah.
Always a chance of that.
The only thing is the memorandum C1. Okay.
But I have it in email.
Do you need me to send you the email, Mike, or do you have it? Okay. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break.
All right.
All right.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Bring us back to order. We got the PowerPoint up, which is great. So, okay.
All right, that's good enough. I updated a few things, but that's all right. I'll follow along here. Perfect. Okay, so again, to recap, to start off, so super exciting, right? We got the money moved up, which is huge. We were looking possibly 15 years out. That is fantastic. Our legislature said it was a compelling vision and a project, and that's what convinced all the other legislators across the state to agree to move this up. We just got a new 75-page memo a week ago from SCJ with again, yet new information as we keep getting on this project. It was the first time we had kind of detail. It was the first time we had really detailed cost breakdowns and what the project cost, and a lot more new information on some of WashDOT's reasoning and justification for some of the extra costs that we got hit with in the past month or two. And so, again, I think it's our due diligence to look through all the options, to look at ways to get this done if we can. So I basically, with that in mind, put on my project manager hat and dug into the details. And so if we go to the first slide, just a recap of where we're at with the money we have in hand and the expenses. The bottom line is that the current budget that they have is 30.2 million. We have 27 million, so that is a gap of 3.2 million. We can go to the next slide. And so one idea I've mentioned a few times already, and I wanted to flush out a little more, was the idea of phasing this project, in that we do have a preferred alternative, but if we broke it into two phases, doing the 12-foot east side main connector first, and then doing the 8-foot west side later, there's a lot of benefits to it. First, I just did some math to find out if that is feasible, if we have enough money on hand to basically do the 12-foot side first, with the first allocation of 15 million for construction. We can talk about details later, but a back of the envelope calculation I did says, yes, we could do it for about 15.5 million, 50.4. A more detailed estimate where you say, what do we really need to finish to have the 12-foot side done? And we can put off the rest until we have the 8-foot side, comes out to about 12.6. So I want to throw that out there, that it is feasible to do it this way. And I know we'll have some discussion on that there's downsides to it too. But the largest upside to me is kind of risk mitigation, in that this project does keep shifting on us in terms of the information we're getting. The cost keeps growing as it has been by the month. And so by phasing it this way, we can really guarantee that we get the really important 12-foot side completed, and it mitigates the risk of having no improvements to the bridge at all. And so that is what I wanted to throw out there, and we can discuss that in more detail of how that would work. I thought we should look at phasing as an option. We can go to the next slide. Detailed cost breakdown that makes it fiscally possible. I'll go to the next slide. And so I think really doing due diligence of the council of the city, knowing, looking at about 3.2 million, is considering all possible funding sources out there. Again, thanks to Director Nucky for looking at these. I think there's a much more detailed conversation on all of these. But I wanted to list a lot of the funding sources that are out there specifically for this project. So WashDOT has about 4 main grants. Some are coming up this year. Safe Routes to School, pedestrian and bicycle program. We currently are going to put in 2 grants to PSRC Self-Care TC for 6th Street and 11th. I think it's worth discussing whether we want to add a third or modify one of those to throw it on the table. Transportation Improvement Board grant, open in June. The congressional appropriations, my new version has it listed, but Kilmer, Cantwell, and Murray just basically opened up their direct appropriation process. At least 2 of the 3 applications just opened up a day or 2 ago. So that is a possibility. And then there is also the Public Works Board, which thankfully was not removed in the last legislative session. So there are extremely low interest rate loans of 1% available over 20 years. And again, this is something I think we could discuss in more detail in either Public Works or Finance to explore the feasibility of these. Next slide is, of course, hey, it's nice to get more money, but can we reduce the cost of the project? First thing that stood out to me was that 4.1 million of that 30.2 million budget is contingency costs for construction, which is it's 25% of construction costs. And one thing I wanted to poke at is that, typically for project contingency, in the really early phases, you might want to have a large contingency cost because you don't have your cost nailed down right. At this point, we flushed out a lot of it. So I want to dig into if that 25% is reasonable. Can we reduce that contingency cost? It's a very large chunk of the budget. Again, WashDOT, and I think we'll discuss more on this as we learn more. But anyway, that's the gist of this slide is this is a really big chunk of the budget, and do we really need 25% contingency in there? So effectively, if you don't have the contingency cost, this project's actually already in or below budget. Next slide. Another cost reduction is shorter catwalks. So essentially, in the memo, and again, I'm going to say I don't 100% understand this, or I'm going to claim that it all makes perfect sense. And I think that's part of the issue is with new information. I really recommend we use Public Works to dive into this with WashDOT and get clarity on it, because a lot of it's brand new from WashDOT and not clear. But the argument that they're making is that with those deep girders on the side of the bridge, and actually, Mike, do you mind going forward 2 slides to a little diagram? So this is what was unexpected. We were unexpectedly hit with about 2 months ago, is that we have 4 piers there, Pier 6 and Pier 7 on the steel part of the bridge, of the deep V-shaped girders that come in. And so what WashDOT was saying was that when you look at the U-bits and the ability to inspect it, especially around those deep girders, they want to build catwalks to be able to get into those deep places. And part of the rationale is on the left. These are diagrams from Aspen Aerial, the manufacturer of the U-bits. And so WashDOT essentially provided them with the depth of those girders and said, hey, do your magic with the dimensions of the U-bit truck. Can you get in there and inspect? And Aspen Aerials came back and said, and then you can go back 2 slides now, Mike, thanks. Aspen Aerials came back and said, oh yeah, you'll need catwalks about 50 feet on each side of the pier. But WashDOT came back and they haven't justified it from what I've seen, but they said, oh, just throw in catwalks along the entire span of the steel portion. And so to me, it's not justified to do that. And this entire length of the steel portion is over 600 feet. If you go off Aspen's recommendation, you only need about 200 feet of catwalk. So saving that alone would reduce the budget by $937,000, so almost $1 million on its own if not needed.
The green type is WashDOT?
Yes, green type is WashDOT's response. The black is Mr. Weber's initial question to him. So just to keep timely, next slide. Following up on that is they were recommending 2 catwalks along each side of the bridge to be able to inspect the inside of that girder. They were also claiming that the U-bits can't reach the center of the bridge, and so they would need a center catwalk. In both of these cases, what they gave to Aspen Aerials was they said, hey, do an analysis based on a girder depth of 15 feet, 10 inches. And if you go forward 1 slide, Mike, that 15 foot 10 on the right there, that's the depth of the girder at the pier itself, and it gets shallower. And so when you run an analysis based on that, you're never actually going to locate a U-bit. You're not going to park it right on top of a pier to do the inspection. You're going to park it away from the pier. So that dotted line is when WashDOT came out and did the test, which was so appreciated because we were all sitting there looking at the same thing and getting mutual understanding. They parked it there, but they never actually moved it left and right. So they never really tried to get at it from farther away from the pier. And what the bottom left diagram shows is a simple mock-up that if instead of assuming, if you went back to Aspen Aerials and said, oh man, 15 foot 10 is actually, it's unrealistic. You never need that. Give a shallower depth. If you were to inspect from farther away from the pier, you can reach the center. And then it's still confusing to me because when you read through it, they also show when they came out and did their simulated test of an 8-foot sidewalk and the U-bit over it, they seem to be reaching the middle of the bridge fine. In fact, they seem to be going past the middle of the bridge. So there's a photo, I'm gonna get in the slide deck here, but there's a photo of them with the bucket past the middle of the bridge. So the claim is that you need the center catwalk along the entire span of the bridge, and it really is not well justified. And so again, due diligence, I think we need to just have that conversation with WashDOT in another meeting and get understanding much better. And then last slide here, just some other miscellaneous things to point out. So there's, on that first one, just over $500,000 is a cost to remove the current center concrete barrier that goes down the middle of the road, to remove it and replace it with a lighter weight concrete. The next one, 1.3 million, comes from taking the existing concrete barriers and railings on the inner portion of the walkways and totally replacing them. And in both cases, to me, the rationale is that they're doing that because they need to reduce the total weight of the bridge, because they just added a ton of weight, both from the full length catwalks and a really weird way that they're supporting the platform out with these giant steel beams that, yeah, thank you. Good image. So in one case, they're saying they can support it with a cross beam going up, and the others, they're actually saying they're bolting on this entire lot of steel along the entire section of the bridge just to get out far enough to have a little vertical pole supporting it. And so that was not, I could not find a justification for why they would design it that way and add the weight. And then the last one is the UBIT costs. I would still like to go back to WashDOT. I understand staff may not be in a position to be able to do that, but I'll say it out loud. WashDOT has cost the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars on this project because of changing and inaccurate information. And they continue to escalate the cost of the UBIT to us. And so I think that's also worth pushing back on. So again, I think there's a lot of ways to get this current alternative and budget, but it's going to take council, I think, talking to WashDOT and having some breakout sessions. And again, my suggestion is, if Chair of Public Works agrees, is that Public Works is a good forum where we could invite WashDOT in specifically and just do our due diligence in processing this new 70-page memo we got only a week ago, to make sure that we've really explored all these possible options. That's my presentation. Yeah.
So, okay, so we've got that, and then this is in reference to in our packet. Mike, are you able to share item C1 from the packet? The one item we do have to get, just so that the public sees what we're talking about, which is just kind of we got a memorandum. Discussing 4 alternatives. Alternative X, which council approved by resolution, and alternative 1, an 8-foot by 8-foot, 10-foot by 10-foot alternative 2, and a 12-foot by 5-foot. And Public Works outlined the budget shortfalls and surpluses. And so I think it's important for us to look at this too, before we continue on with our discussion. Because we can see that there are a couple options that are within budget. We have a negative on design costs, but if you look down at the bottom, and design and construction costs can't typically be intermingled. So you can't move construction costs up to design to take care of that negative. And so, were you going to say something?
And that's not updated with the recent 500,000 for design that we just got, just to be clear.
Okay. It's not updated with the 5,000 in design that we got that was appropriated from
500,000.
500,000.
I'm sorry, I meant 500,000, but it
I
is.
don't believe so. For the cost difference.
It says it is. In the 2023-2025 budget.
Yeah, but we had 1.5 million. Now we got the extra 500,000, so we have 2 million for the engineering and design.
Okay, so the design cost is 500K less, is that what you're saying?
Yes, if I manage, but good
I-
to have a mutual conversation here to make sure we get back.
Anna,
Is this omitted, the 500K, because so many people are assuming that the Climate Commitment Act will be repealed?
no, I don't believe so. I thought it was added in there, so,
Okay.
and
Speak and be.
you want, yeah, just briefly, yeah.
A good conversation. Just-
So here,
Right, yeah.
before we, wait, before we do, okay. What I want to set the standard of for this conversation is that we ask limited questions for staff because, and this is an important question for you to answer, just clarifying questions because there's a lot that's already available to us. So I don't want to keep y'all at the table for too long because it is kind of like a council thing. But is the 500,000 in there?
So in the numbers down below where we say, the difference in, the cost, we did not put the $500,000 in down below because it wasn't a funding, source that we have secured. And although we did mention it
Okay.
as a funding source that is available if the, Climate Reduction Act doesn't get.
Repealed. Oh,
The Commitment Act, not Reduction Act. Sorry.
So the idea is that, if, we do realize those funds at $500,000, then the gap for design will get less by that 500,000.
thank you so much. And so we also have an email that replied to Jeff's presentation. And so I want to just kind of make sure that we all have that. And I want to, make sure that we're honoring the responses that are here. Who has actually had time to read the response from Director Nucky? Okay, great. And these lights are just gonna keep going off, aren't they? What? Okay, well, of course. And so, yeah, Michael.
Is that a question?
Yeah,
Director Nucky kind of responded to this about the phasing, but my concern on phasing the work is we talk all this about weight on the load on the bridge. Can we do one side? Like, is that structurally sound? Is that in there?
it might
Well,
be.
He says that we can do the phasing, but he doesn't sort of, I didn't see where it address if that's
The weight
adding
distribution.
weight to one side of the bridge. Can that be
Good
done?
question.
So that's the only thing that I'm not seeing addressed. That would be of a concern.
If we don't do the catwalk.
So,
We did reach out to our structural engineer on this earlier today to have that conversation. And we asked if there's any other considerations that we would need to be aware of if it did phase. And that wasn't something that was mentioned, but we didn't specifically ask the question. So we can go back and ask the question to get a specific answer on that.
yeah.
As of right now, that's not something.
But I would think the structural engineer would say right away, oh, I don't know, might be kind of side heavy.
No.
The initial side.
I had that thought.
One side.
We don't like to assume that that may be the answer, but we can get an answer.
Okay, and so there's responses to each slide. And so I'm just going to open up the discussion I'm going to allocate a good 15 minutes for us just to have an open discourse with each other. Just open discourse. I'm not going to call on you. Just behave. All right. Oh, and one other clarifying thing that I did forget to mention at the beginning of the meeting, the pucks are on and we have to be careful about outside noise. We've been really good about it, but I think like with our snacks and stuff, we should just we have pretty quiet snacks. Okay, opening it up.
Okay, I'll open.
Thank you.
I fully understand that staff needs to maintain a good relationship with WASDOT. I respect that. I know that if you push back on WASDOT, they push back twice as hard. But that being said, WASDOT hasn't done the city of Bremerton many favors. Our state legislators have done us a lot of favors. And that's why we got the extra money was the community came together, showed up at meetings and said, this is what we want. We want 12 and 8. We want 12 and 8. So even though in theory, it doesn't look like we have the budget for 12 and 8, I think a 25% contingency at this stage is awfully high. And if WashDOT and your consultant are saying, oh no, we absolutely have to keep it, that means they haven't come up with more expensive things to add on to this. And I couldn't be more disappointed with WashDOT. I've read all the memos, all the emails that you have on your website, and you get both staff and community members.
Can I pause for a moment? I know I said it, but can you talk to the whole council and not to the staff?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, that was my only request about this.
Okay, so on the webpage, staff and the community asked WashDOT really good questions, and they were either evasive or 6 months or a year or 2 years later, they changed their mind, which has run up the cost and it's had a lot of uncertainty. So I understand our consultant being somewhat nervous about not having a large contingency, because after 2 years of WashDOT giving misleading information, it's hard for them to give us a good number. But it's like, there's statements from WashDOT saying we want to limit catwalks because not only does it add weight, but it's an additional place for the birds to nest. And we know that that's a big problem when we go to paint or do any kind of maintenance on it. And it seems like from the curt tones and some of the letters and emails that it looked like some of the staff at WashDOT were under duress and told this is the way we're going to go, even though maybe that really wasn't what they were feeling. And I can't guess that. I'm just reading the tone of it.
Can I ask just a clear, but we have more than just WashDOT saying that we did the catwalk, right? We have a structural engineer on board that was saying it. I mean, I'm just kind of going back to.
You have a structural engineer who was given specific misleading information by WashDOT and said, look at this.
The structural engineer, okay.
Our sergeant engineers, from my understanding, was engineering the support structures to be able to do the sides. They were not the ones saying that you need the catwalk for the U-bit to clear. The people saying that you need the catwalks for the U-bit to be able to get access is coming from WashDOT. And that is partially based off the analysis from Aspen Aerial, the U-bit manufacturer, based on a maximum girder depth that was set by WashDOT.
So there was never an accredited structural engineer that said that?
Well, they're accredited, but you only do your work based on the information provided to you,
Okay, so what you're saying is that we have been given, that the structural engineer has been given misleading information directly by WashDOT. So that's.
Yes.
Okay, so the structural engineer is taking bad information, putting their name on it. And
they don't know.
Okay.
I mean, when they're
but they
told
don't-
it's X and it's really X minus Y, they don't know. Like, for those of you who aren't familiar, I would say go look at a YouTube video of a U-bit inspection and you'll see how U-bits move back and forth. And a U-bit, it's not like it's going through a pier. It's, looking around it. So you start behind, you move ahead, they articulate. I mean, just think like when you see bucket trucks that Patelco's using to do poles, they maneuver all around. So a U-bit's like that in reverse. So what's my opening, Sal?
No, I think you're right on one hand, oh, no extra catwalks, that's bad. But now, again, all I see in the memo is just saying, oh, do the whole span of catwalks. No justification.
Right.
Do we need to get, okay. So, well, here's what I'm really asking. If we really truly believe that we've been misled and manipulated, then there's legal recourse. But I mean, are you suggesting we need to do legal recourse against somebody who gave us, are we, I mean, that's really what we're saying. We're accusing somebody of,
Well, I think that's strong language to be using. I caution you on that. But the
You guys have
information
already
has
used
changed.
strong language, making accusations.
yeah, you really did.
Against the state.
So you've made,
There's a phrase like, don't bite the hand that
Well,
feeds you. I mean,
The information has been continually changed. That's not.
That is
that's
not
a question.
incorrect, Michael.
I'm telling you, the way you've phrased some things, we don't have all the facts. You're making it sound very deliberate.
Not saying it's deliberate, it's just the information has
I
changed.
didn't say you said deliberate, but you've implied a deliberateness. There's things like this that happen all the time. What was the last big one we had where the information kept revealing itself and it changes and it changes? It's a normal process. But to be good, I just think we need to really watch what we're saying on record. Well, what we're saying, period, and the way we phrase things. It's okay. It's like normal conversations. I can say, I feel like you did that or doing something, but to make an accusation that you may have some evidence on, but we don't really know. You're making it sound like it was intentional. We're talking about tone of emails, and I get it. I read tone into emails all the time, but it's often not there. We just need to really, we need to go about this, at a high level, kind of, if we feel they're going low, we need to go higher. We need to be just not
Yes,
breaking
but
out through the dirt.
we're the ones who are going to okay for this to move forward with this amount of taxpayer dollars being spent. The state may be giving it to us, but we've all paid taxes, or most of us, and then, all the residents here. So it's not like it's a gift, but we need to make sure we're not overly overspending on something.
completely agree. I completely agree with you on that. And I feel like that is, I think like where my concern is coming from. And I just wanted to ask, like, we can talk about all the things we think are wrong with the design. But what I really appreciate is how much the community was engaged in the process for this. And how much like effort and how much research you have poured yourself into in looking at the information. And this is information that may be useful in another context as well, right? I mean, that's something that's being talked about at multiple levels, right? And then just the way that you have dissected things to find the best cost savings is really impressive. And I super appreciate that. And I just wanted to ask, just objectively, and I don't want us to feel like we're going out to war. This is just us sitting here at a table with oranges and pizza. Okay, I tried to soften the blow with my pizza.
Where's the zester?
The zester. I will use my teeth for you. But I just want to ask objectively, and speaking of the orange, what would be incredibly wrong with a 12 and 5?
I would like to,
So,
too premature to.
yeah, so I guess here's the thing that I really feel we need to keep coming back to. Michael, you said, don't bite the hand that feeds you. That's the legislature. The legislature approved the vision that came from the community. That the 12-foot and the 8-foot. I agree with Jeff that the community will understand if we can finish the 12-foot in one phase, and that will give us the connectivity. It is an incontrovertible fact that whether it was from grief and sorrow during the pandemic or for whatever cause, the requirements, the criteria, the description of this project changed very frequently. And that the information that we got from WashDOT, for whatever reason, it has imposed a big cost on taxpayers. And I'm just going to come back to the thing that if we reject this gift from the legislature, and it is a gift, they will not be happy about giving us future gifts. They approved this. This is what they want to see. This is why we beat out other cities, because they just went, wow, this scrappy little town on the waterfront is moving forward towards the future. Let's make it happen.
They're not even Edmonds.
Well, how do we know that they approved the funding based off our design proposal?
Because that's what was said.
And that's fairly convincing. What convinced people in the room was the vision for it. And so before
That's what a
we,
state representative
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Oh, which state representative?
Greg?
Greg Nance.
Greg Nance specifically called out a vision for a 12x8, and that is what sold push us forward the biennium.
Community support of the project and the community engagement is what put it over
Yeah.
the top.
Something Emily liked
Something
as
like
well.
that. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to put exact words in
Yeah.
my mouth numbers.
Right.
But general sentiment of we had a resolution and a vision. And so before we make a hasty, I mean, it's a Pandora's box to go back and change it. So not saying it's not off the table, but we have a due diligence in our positions here to do everything we can to investigate getting the project done.
Thank you, Justin.
My come from on this is just so completely different. I have to remind myself that we all see things in a different way. For me, I want to be able to look to staff who we respect and value and have incredible experience and expertise and say, okay, considering all of this, tell us how we make it happen. I want the 12 and 8. Tell us how we make it happen. You know, with the staggering, with that,
Let's keep
you
it to
know,
us right
or
now.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
Because the expertise really is, you know, with staff and with support from council. And so as we hear our council being more and more willing to take on, you know, WashDOT or go on meetings with, or, you know, whatever, I do again want to ask, what can the council's role be? What is it to push? Is it to, I mean, we obviously had a vote, you know, to me, we push forward with that vision. We've gotten really good news recently. I just see it so more optimistically of this isn't that much money, and couldn't we cobble here and cobble there? And you know, I'm used to scrappier, being able to get a little bit more creative in you know, fundraising, and it just seems like I don't want to let our community. Wouldn't it be great if we delivered on this? You know, wouldn't it be great if as a team, you know, staff and the council, you know, and we made it happen, our legislature. So I just want to offer that. I know that I sometimes get, you know, shut down because I'm so optimistic, but that's why I've been very successful in fundraising, you know? So, yeah.
So, I honestly don't have a strong opinion on what the configuration is. And I want to get something that's green lit all the way through. And I'm wondering if there's a way. I think you did an amazing job. I don't have the chops for that type of analysis and stuff. Is there a way to take that and package it? And is there a way for us to send that to the state in a sort of a respectful, clear way that kind of makes them want to go, oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like we're just,
or WashDOT.
they're all the same to me.
No, it's not.
I understand.
Not at all.
That'd be like we're the
What I'm
same as
talking
the
about-
mayor's department.
What I'm talking about, is how do we move this along to get all the green lights we need to make
My
this happen?
suggestion would be, I'd like to understand what a drop dead date is. I don't think it's tomorrow or next week. And that's why if we can take some time here through Public Works or other ones to flush this out. And I guess I won't look at them. But Director Nucky, wherever you are, I really appreciated, and I know obviously Mr. Weber, you're a big candidate too, and all the team, the responses, because I'm looking at this with my own background and experience and having been council stakeholder for a year and a half. I don't have it all right, and I know that, but I want to get the truth. I want to get the right understanding. And so getting those responses was really helpful. And I think if we just have a little more free back and forth, just make sure we're all on the same page and we understand the arguments and geometry, it would really.
Can I ask you, Jeff, what you thought about Director Nucky's responses to your slides? So there are some
Yeah.
direct responses to the slides. And so when we talk about phasing, there's a concern about additional cost.
Yeah.
And then talking about the catwalks, it sounded like there were several different entities that had signed off on the idea of a complete catwalk. And I guess I'm hesitant to take your word on structural analysis. No, I mean, you have a doctorate, but
Shouldn't take me.
right. I mean,
Take my word alone. Yeah.
yeah. And so I just wondered, if you wanted to discuss, we have the slides up here, and I mean, I want to honor his
Well,
concerns.
I think they were great, and they generated even more questions on my end and things to poke at and do again our job of due diligence here. And so I literally wrote up a bunch of questions off of it for kind of each of the main categories about the catwalks and the barriers and the U-bid and the phasing options, and funding is a big one. So depending on how much time we want to spend on this tonight, we could start that kind of back and forth. I think it's more proper in committee. And
yeah, and I actually think that I don't know that we gave Director Nucky enough time to have replies. So I think sending him those questions would be courteous. To send him questions and then have
the questions I just
That you
generated
come up with,
based off what the email from a couple hours ago.
for Director Nucky. It's a back and forth between the two of you in a sense, because it's a response to your slides and your proposal for how budget and materials can be modified to fit into a budget. I'm personally nervous about going down to a 4% contingency. Am I like the only one at this table that feels nervous about a 4% contingency? 5.5%. Okay, I'm sorry.
I still
5.5%. Is there anybody else that's nervous?
I'm nervous about it being that low too. But that being said, it's my understanding that the contract for the final design wasn't gonna come to us until May, is that correct? So we have like another study session and 2 council meetings to give you guys a decision, right?
The idea is I was planning on some people to give the consultant notice by May 1st, and that would help us get design ready for advertising by kind of sort of mid of 2026 is what the schedule is. So if we delay that, then we're just delaying on that back end, right? So it's kind of a 1 month, right, delay. So if we delay a month, we'll add another month back end. That's kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah, but you weren't expecting a decision next week, were you?
I was expecting to give a consultant notice to proceed on May 1st, and however that ended up happening, that happened. If that doesn't happen, I don't think it's the end of the world that we don't do that. I think there may be a little bit of time, but just be cognizant, the more time we spend on this, the more costly the project is.
Well, trust me, I don't think anybody wants to debate this every other week. But I am very interested in having the public have the opportunity to weigh in on their thoughts. I mean, if they say, we're okay with a 5 and 12, and then hopefully they get costs down, so we have money for actors, but
I wanted
that would be.
I wanted to go ahead and just, on that note, just kind of check in and see if there's any, it sounds like you're interested in hearing public feedback. The only way we can do that is with an agenda bill item. So I'd like to have an agenda bill item that suggests the 12 and 5 as a resolution change.
No.
Well, we can, listen, here's why. We can vote it down if we don't agree with it. That's how we get public feedback on this.
And you can get public.
You can get public
ask for
feedback.
public recognition or otherwise.
Yeah.
I think we know where the public's at.
Well, okay, yes, they prefer, okay, but yes, I know that the public has said that they prefer a much nicer alternative, but I think that's before our resolution isn't holding true. We are over budget, and your resolution says we are within budget, but currently, as proposed, we are over budget.
So was the other resolution on the table is also over budget. So
Okay, so
this is not the first time a project's going over. I'm sorry.
No worries.
which is why we need a larger contingency. We can't have a 5.5% contingency. Come on now.
25.
Again, all go over budget. So, okay, so should we instead?
If we're doing
Oh,
3.
Okay.
So
No
again,
problem.
12 by 8, it's what the people wanted, it's what the legislature gave us. In Rector Nucky's memo, there's a lot of comment about costs. There's a limited description of catwalks. That said, it's written there, we can optimize the catwalk design, during the design process, which, means there's some flexibility there. There are no huge, oh my gosh, 12-foot is going to make the entire bridge tilt over and people will be spilled into the inlet. Nobody's saying anything like that. So here what we have is a funding thing. We can build the 12-foot in the first phase. That is going to give the community ability to move back and forth. Almost done, Jennifer.
Okay.
And will, I think, spark increased funding as people see, oh my gosh, they're actually doing it.
You can't do that because when you go to apply for the permit or the permits, there's a million permits. You can't say, we're gonna do a 12 and maybe a 5 and maybe an 8. You have to say,
You're going to do a 12 and an 8.
you have to say you're gonna do
Yeah.
a 12 and an 8.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. When, we'll do the 12 first and then we'll do the 8.
So this is just killing me that.
Well, I mean, they're gonna have to anyway. It's not like anybody's proposing to shut down the whole bridge, I
I
don't
would like to
think.
be able to interact with staff.
Oh, we're past 15 minutes, y'all. Yeah, we've been, y'all were already interacting. You interacted with staff. Go for it.
So thinking we're gonna do projects, WashDOT is going to ask us that we have committed funding for whatever project, whatever you're doing for the whole bridge. They're not gonna let you build 12-foot and then come up with funding for the other side without a design. They're not gonna, we have to have a plan. You have to commit your funding. So if we don't have loans that are secured, they're gonna say, what's your secured funding? We don't have that. So you have to have a complete project. Phasing, the money works, the money coming in works, but phasing the project on 2 halves, it's not gonna work. WashDOT will not approve the project for us to go to construction.
So are you saying that they're not gonna let us even apply for the permits unless we show that we have every dollar their 25% contingency shows?
Permits, we're talking like be able to go award for bid. They will not let us go out for bid to accept it. So our permits might be different, but to go into construction and award bid, we have to have a funded project for the complete project. It can't be phased 12-foot here and 2 years later, we're gonna apply for this. You have to have secured funding before.
But the money comes in phase.
Right, but that's okay. The project's still funded 27 million. We have a $3 million gap. We have to demonstrate to them, we have the funding to do the entire project. So if you're doing
Okay.
a $30 million project, I have to sign off that I have secured funding. We don't have secured funding.
How's that
For the
compare
whole
like
project.
6
For the
feet?
entire project, all of
Mhm.
it. It's gonna be the whole project.
They've been very clear, both sides of the bridge have to be ADA accessible.
Yeah, but I mean, they're not building both sides at once, right?
But you need to secure your
Right.
funding.
Under one contract, they do it under one.
Under one contract, yes.
Jeff, what were you gonna ask?
Not the 12 first.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's a great conversation. I think this is really helpful to be able, instead of email back and forth in a room, be able to.
Yep.
Okay.
access it. So That's all a learning experience all around. And so that differs from like 6th Street with the 3 different phases.
Yeah, that.
I know it's the different projects. Yeah, I'm happy to learn. Yeah.
We're doing segments.
Yeah, we're doing specific segments in different phases in that way with different funding applications. So it's a whole different way of delivering projects with that method.
So the risk would be if we couldn't secure the funding for the other half of the bridge, what do you build? If we don't have it, say we are building 4 million,
Mhm.
you have, you have a bridge to nowhere.
And that's kind
Where
of,
to stop?
so that's why in technical, detail aside of what's allowed, in theory, to me, phasing is kind of a safer approach because let's say we even do down the road decide to scope to 12 and 5 and it's still over budget, right? Then we have nothing. If we're able to say, we know we want the 12-foot on one side, we know that's our top priority, we're going to get that done, then it mitigates the risk of having no bridge improvements at all.
I think he's saying we can't do it because we have to demonstrate we have the secured funding.
You need to go.
And they said we have to make it both
You need to
ADA.
go in.
Right.
Your funding for what the budget is. And going into a pre-designed number
Mhm.
and not being in budget, that's not gonna be accepted. We have to go, and so that's where you go search for money and look for money, but we don't have to bring money. I don't have an alternative to put a $3.2 million for like every other.
So
And
I
that's
have a
where-
question.
Let me defer to Denise here for a moment.
I have a question, and that is, there's been suggestions from Councilmember Coughlin, some responses. It almost seems like we want staff to come back to us with a recommendation as to how to best move forward with these new considerations.
I think they're nervous too, because they have made their recommendation to us and it has been formally rejected.
But it's not with the, we're so close, I feel. Maybe I'm so far off, but we're just so close. And to throw the I believe we're throwing opportunity away. But if we underpromise, like if we go to WashDOT with the 12 and 5, is there any reason why if we secured funding in that meantime, we couldn't up it to a?
Yeah, because we won't have permitted plans.
Can I ask just, okay, so my understanding of alternative X is there's not really additional funding because we're in the negative. We can't even do the connectors. But here's what I really like is alternative 7. We still have additional funding to do the connectors or to do off-bridge work. And that's valuable to our communities on our side, I know. And then we have 4 districts that would benefit from off-bridge improvements that would be available in the alternative 7.
I can just imagine though, what I hear coming is we went so far over budget in construction and everything, we don't have any money for connectors anymore.
They already said that for alternative X.
Well, that was for all the alternatives. We didn't have money for connectors, and that got taken off the table, a year ago. And the argument was that's okay because a lot of the fundings out there are really high priority for connectors.
Small practical question. Can we borrow 3 mil from the,
I want to, hold on, I want to,
from the public?
but I want
works?
to, may I go forward with just a quick clarifying question about connectors? I want to stay on that topic for a minute. Okay, and then let me go to yours. So the additional funding, and I'm actually going to talk to staff now. The additional funding that from the alternative 7 is roughly 2.5 million, right? That's newer than what we saw before. Would that cover off-bridge work such as connectors, or would it cover things like stairs, improvements?
Stairs are already in there.
Stairs are already in there. So
Got the exact amount.
what would you do with that extra 2.5 for construction? If that in a perfect world, that's what we, might.
So I mean, answer is that we have the money to do more work, if it becomes that way. And we're not gonna know until we go through the design process and we hit that first design milestone. And when we actually know, based off the design, what our costs are, we'll have a good idea for how much additional funding we may have available. And at that point, it's okay, what do we want to do with that additional funding as part of the project? And it could be used potentially for additional connectors. But the idea would be we want to spend it, because it's free money. That
We're going to spend every penny, right?
Yeah,
That's,
Every
yeah, yeah.
penny.
John
Okay.
has other things to talk about there, but
So,
no, that's
had you finished, Jennifer?
Oh, I was waiting. They answered. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, Anna. I wanted to stay on that topic for a moment.
All right. So I'm going to go back to Mike's topic, which is like WashDOT's not going to let us put one foot in front of the other until we can show we've got all the money. Can we borrow the money from the public works board? It's 1% money. Can we do that? Okay. What's our likelihood of getting that?
I've not been involved in transportation, working on the transportation side, I've always secured utility loans. So I don't know.
Tom?
I have no idea. I mean, we would be asking the state that's already funded us at 27 million to fund us out an extra 4.
But we'd be borrowing it.
What the state would end up having to do is make a decision that it's more important to provide that additional money to the city of Bremerton so that they can improve one side of the bridge, rather than fund a different project for a different jurisdiction. I have no idea how they would decide that, but that's the thought process, I believe, that the TIB would go through with
I'm just
that
talking,
application.
yeah, I'm not even talking about the,
I have no
the
idea.
grant,
There's
just
no
straight up
guarantees.
loan.
There's no guarantees at all when you're applying for low interest loans or grants. It's a competitive process.
Very competitive.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but the whole point of applying for the loan would not be to say, oh, we're just gonna make one side good. The point of applying for the loan would be to say, we are a financially stable, moving forward city that it has the money in hand to complete this entire project, without which WashDOT won't let us do anything. Is that correct?
That's correct. You have to.
Okay.
Hold on. What Tom's saying is
Thank you.
the additional 3 feet on one side of the bridge might not compete well to qualify for that loan. It's because those are competitive loans. They're very competitive loans.
Well,
So to do projects and so the state's already appropriated 27 million. It might not be I don't think it's very likely, but it's something, it's an option. It's definitely an option. You still need to pay that back over time.
yeah.
But
Well, 1% money.
on a bridge, it's not. Yeah. It's just-
On a bridge that's not ours.
Not ours.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, I think that's all valid, but
We're
I
buying
think
a U-bit that's not.
your suggestion of what can we do to get this done? It's something that we needed to hash out. And there's more to hash out, I think. And even on the phasing, I'm hearing from Mike No and Director Nucky's email earlier was it could be phased and there's a lot of risks and complications, but technically possible.
Sure, but
Yeah.
absolutely increase project costs. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we don't know how much, and it would take a
lot.
while to
Yeah.
figure that out.
We don't have secured funding.
There's a lot more to flush out, and here, there's other, I don't know, grant programs, there's other, again, I'm just saying, we haven't even,
Can we,
we're just starting to touch on all these.
so there's some hesitation about accepting, well, first of all, I totally do not like the idea of taking out a loan on a bridge that's not ours. But whatever, if it's a solution that y'all want to take, then that's being creative. That's a creative solution. But I want to understand the hesitation for the federal programs, because I know, having worked for a federal grant program, all the strings and such that are tied to federal programs. And so
30% of money and at least that much extra in time.
Just one thing, I mean, just give an example.
Yeah, am I right on that, Tom?
So many of the
Everybody
funding
groans.
sources that Jeff has in his slide, which was some good research, but many of those funding sources are federal aid funding sources. And what federal aid does to us is it kicks us into complying with federal aid requirements, federal requirements for our project, which means that all the steel must be Buy America. We have to have a certain amount of the project done by disadvantaged business enterprises, which often comes with more cost because for administration for their work. As well as paying Davis-Bacon wages, which are the prevailing wages on the federal level that we're required to pay if they're higher than our local prevailing wages. So all that, not to mention that it takes more administrative cost and inspection cost on our end to be able to deliver the project. So all those things together add cost to this project, and it could. On previous projects, in my experience, it has gone up to about 20-30% of additional cost to deliver and construct that project. So I think our recommendation there is, since it's state money, keep it at state money. And if there are grant programs available that keep it at state money, that's what you'd want to shoot for. The federalizing project will get us into also additional permitting on the federal level as well, and we highly recommend not doing that.
Virtually all of Jeff's possible funding and financial solutions are statewide.
That's not exactly
WashDOT,
correct.
PSRC, Transportation Improvement Board,
Yeah.
Public Works
PSRC is
Board.
federal. The only program on there that is state funding is like that a little bit of safe routes to schools. They may give you a little bit of state funding, but it's intermixed with federal, and you don't know where you're going to get it.
Right.
And then the other one is TIB, but that particular program that Jeff mentions doesn't give out $3 million. They give out like 500,000.
Find that stack with other
There are
funds.
limitations to the grant programs that we do have as well.
Well, I'm really interested in having the public weigh in.
I'm still, more on the,
What do we
Still
want to hear
learning.
from the public?
I
Well,
just want staff to fix it.
Right. So
They've given us, I mean, we have something on the books that says we're gonna do 12 and 5. 8 and 5. Sorry.
12 and 8.
12 and 8, okay.
Wait, here, 1 and 2.
Staff is saying we don't have enough money for it. So, I mean, staff can't fix that. They can't fix that. We, I believe, can do some more questioning and do that for, another cycle and stuff. But I want to hear what the public has to say. If they're like, okay, 12 and 5, we can live with that. As long as you build the 12 first, and you're saying there'll be money left over
For
for connectors. Because that scares me to death, especially on my side, the Warren Avenue. I mean, we can't even get downtown.
No.
So what good is having all this great stuff on one side only if we can't get to it
Mhm.
in half the city?
Mhm.
So
Oh, that would be my side too.
Mhm.
well,
Let's go for it.
Not
If we're gonna
really.
go there.
We need the bridge to also connect to my district.
Wait,
Mm.
I just watched a
So-
comedy routine that said,
The multimodal.
that was making fun of Portland.
Oh.
Portland,
bridges.
12 bridges are too much, Portland. Okay, so I want to kind of do just a temperature check. So what I hear you saying is you want to do more questions of Public Works, and Jane wants to hear from the public. So I'd like to go ahead and close us out from this, unless you want to talk about it for another 20 minutes. Okay.
Go to the public. So, again, I think I'm not saying it's not possible, but be real careful about redoing a council resolution that just passed a couple months ago. It's kind of a Pandora's box to reopen it. And somebody else could be saying we passed something a couple months later, oh, I want to bring that back up for a vote. So that's why be real careful about due diligence here. And if we're going to open that box a bit, I still have questions on the ADA access of WashDOT, because to me that has not been, when you look at what they've actually said, and again, I'll talk to staff on this more too, but they basically say consult with your local ADA liaison about possible solutions. And so that's another part where I think as council, we could push back on that, because if we go back to everything, I'm sorry, I would like to throw back on the table there one-sided option only, which saves a ton of money for connectors, and you can have a wide one-sided bridge with lots of money for connectors. So it's again, we go there, we're I think again, due diligence.
So that's fair. It would be like, I mean, it was the same caution in our camping ordinance, for instance, and we're going to want to look at that again at some point and check if it's working.
Yeah.
So
And that's
it's different though. The difference is that there is a need to move forward on a design.
but
And so
not,
to your
not in 2 weeks.
right.
Okay, I don't need to move forward in 2 weeks.
right.
But soon after that.
Yeah.
So we have a shorter amount of time to consider. But I do want to hear from the public if they're willing to.
All right, well, we have a Public Works Committee meeting next week.
Okay.
And meanwhile,
I'm sure that
people can send staff more questions that they have.
You'll like that.
we do have some
Well, I'd rather
people
go
who are
before.
tuning in on.
I'm watching.
And so if anybody tuning in wants to come to public recognition at the beginning of the meeting at 5:30 next Wednesday to share their thoughts, we'd love to hear from the public in that format. And so it sounds like we're going to take this back to Public Works for some consideration and hope to hear from the public next week. And then do we want to have this as another discussion item for our next study session?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so are we gonna have another standing agenda item for the Warren Avenue Bridge? Is that what's happening?
Hopefully.
Right. So we'll keep it on for the next study session. We'll hear from the public and you'll talk about it in Public Works, but you guys are really great and amazing with how much research you do, and I just hope that we can find a mutually beneficial arrangement. Okay. All right. So we are gonna close out that item. I have somehow lost, I don't need to sprint. But next up, we have committee reports.
Okay, so thank you,
Oh.
staff. I just want to throw it in there.
Yeah.
Thank you, staff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's safe.
We have, next on general council business, Public Safety Committee Chair Denise Fry.
I have notes. It was a great meeting,
Wonderful.
Public Safety Committee meeting on the 7th. Judge Flood reported that her second State of the Court address was well received, and she will be presenting it to council in April. The bulk of the meeting was spent discussing the heightened need to plan for adequate law enforcement and fire services as we plan for all the growth we're projecting for Bremerton. Chief Wolf ran us through the numbers again, and we continue to operate much below the recommended ratio. With the growth that's projected in and around Bremerton, the city will have to invest in additional public safety services, obviously, to meet the increased need. And how are we going to do that? And I think he's turning up the volume on this. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm turning up the volume on it. Continued mention of adding a patrol area. Remember, there are 5 patrol areas in the city of Bremerton, 7 council districts. They seem to think that adding another patrol area would make some impact, but that again is multiple officers that would need to be added. EMS levy, very probable coming up again. Let's hope that we do a better job with advancing that or getting word out and what we can do to help with that. Red light cameras were discussed. Chief Wolf would like to see us double the red light cameras and make sure that the money is going into law enforcement. However, there seemed to be a provision. I'm gonna have to look it up where it went into streets. So
Yep.
yeah, but anyway, wasn't really any pushback on the red light cameras as a income source. Car tab fee was brought up as a possibility. And then impact mitigation fees, as we develop all these big multifamily housing, what kind of impact fees? And I personally would like to see us examine our impact fees or any other related with development fees and just see what the best practices are out there. Because even though it would be additional work to get that set up and all of that, it might really impact these services that we're going to need to start investing in.
I think it's tax.
Yes, be
Only
taxes.
city in the state that doesn't have an impact fee
For transportation.
for
Yes,
development. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And then update standing item anti-court camping ordinance. Still no arrests. Police using a lot of discretion. No unmet need yet for shelter. Work with Common Streets is going well. We'll be presenting a 90-day report, so we'll be hearing about that. And Director Elevato recently mentioned to me that Parks is also using Common Streets or interacting with the reporting.
Yeah. Will be using problem area.
Yeah, so that was great to hear. Yeah. So great meeting. Can you think of anything else, my committee members, that
That seems like about it.
Yeah, I think you got it covered.
On the
I
patrols,
tried to take notice?
did the bike patrols come back up as a possibility? Although I
Yeah, there's no way.
need staffing for it, so okay.
But the additional patrol area would be
Ski.
Skias
Yeah.
to the south, because it's so far and, you know.
I have one thing. I've been asking since late November, for the Bremerton Police Department to provide me with some data that I wanted to bring to you on how many citations they've issued for noise violations, speeding, traffic stops, a couple of other things. And I've gotten, there's always some reason. First Joe Sexton was out, and then the crime analyst was out. Now the crime analyst is going to be out for the foreseeable future. So if there's any way the public safety could move that forward, because if we're,
We just want some kind of a report.
yeah, for 2023.
Oh, okay, okay.
So are you asking if they could give a briefing to public safety so that they can give you a briefing on
However, the
noise ordinance and how it's impacted the city?
because I understand that Chief Wolf thought that the noise ordinance could not be enforced as it required a decibel reader, which, as you all remember, we did not, we didn't include.
Right.
So but all of these are quality of life things. There are things that constituents ask me about. We agreed during the joint planning session that we were going to proceed based on data.
Data?
Yeah, so it would be good to have the data. So,
I love the number of citations, yeah,
yeah,
for noise ordinance and others.
and also just to add that automated
parking, bike lanes.
Well, but you go, girl, you have to.
Okay, I do want to know what's going on with that bike. You know,
I can report.
they said that it's illegal to park there. Is that really the consensus now? I'm sorry, I got us off track.
Yeah, the Washington Avenue, but.
Okay, I'm sorry, okay.
Yeah, also,
Back on track.
automated traffic safety cameras can be used not just at red lights, but also in park zones, school zones, and areas where school kids walk, determined by school district that it
Yes.
needs to be a safe walking area. So this is an income source of finance. And I think
not a
we all
regret.
We
thought-
talked about it, more cameras.
It's regressive if you're taxing or fining.
Yes,
That's a regressive taxation.
that's what works.
Progressive would be selling some of our excess parcels, but this is not on topic. This is not your
That's
report,
not
this is their report.
sustainable.
How is your public safety report going? Did you complete it?
Yes.
Public Safety Committee? Thank you.
Done.
We're gonna move on to other regional councils. Jeff, I know you and I are on a couple.
Yeah, I got a couple.
I have, we can tag team on KRCC if you want, but.
That'd be perfect. Yeah, I think I had to leave that meeting a little early.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of start on that, and then you can finish up if you remember.
Okay.
I'm new to KRCC. I don't always, but it was really interesting to see how many different programs there are being implemented for transitional housing all across the county. I think that was really informative for me. And there were some reports by other counties or by other cities, I'm sorry, about how they're implementing their affordable housing programs. And I did get a chance to ask about the Bainbridge Island AMI. And so that is so interesting because Bainbridge Island actually, there are people that benefit from transitional housing programs that use the Bainbridge Island BMI. And Leonard, why am I blanking on his last name? Leonard Forsman. I was going to say Forsman came over to me and he said, yeah, it was really interesting that you asked that because, around in Suquamish, we benefit from using Bainbridge BMI. And so we might give them a little bit of crap sometimes for being higher income than we are. But I mean, there are benefits sometimes to using a higher AMI. Do you have anything else you want to add to that one? And then I'm going to let you finish with your regional meetings.
For KRCC,
Yeah.
there was, I lost it. There we go. They also presented on the county as a whole collaborating on accessory dwelling unit, trying to, as we talked about, and Director Spencer gave a little information on, trying to see if they can come up with standard pre-approved designs that the whole county and the cities can follow. So good to see that works. I know that's something that people have asked for. Yeah. And I think where that left off was there was wide interest in seeing that continue. So I think the board liked where that was going. Presentation on 0.1% for mental health. Yeah. And they kind of went through an overview of their projects that is being used in there. I didn't write down any specific highlights about it, but they listed them all out, I think, from the you remember any?
I have something interesting
Yeah.
that I wanted to bring up. And I believe what they chose to do with their 1/10 in Paulsbo, what they did with some of their 1/10 of 1% is they took 50K and they allocated it to the Bluebills. I don't know if y'all know about the controversy that we were having with our elder mobile home parks around here.
Yeah.
What they chose to do with their funding was to deliver it. They thought that it would be helpful for rent, but what they found out is these mobile home parks, they're requiring upgrades, but also these folks are struggling with roofs that are falling apart and floors and such. And so I just found that really intriguing. And I don't know where we sit with accessing these funds in the city of Bremerton. And the mayor, do you have any, I don't know, if you want to,
Confused on that, yeah.
yeah.
We benefit quite a bit already.
Okay,
Yeah.
what do we use our, we get the 1/10 of 1% for, and there's two different allocations, which I don't think I realized until this year. There's 1/10 of 1% for mental health,
Right.
and that's where you have to have substance use, mental wellness to have a program that qualifies.
Yeah.
But there's another 1/10 of 1%.
Salvation Army. also
Okay.
Doesn't appropriation negative, keep that shelter on.
They have the mental wellness.
Yeah.
I think it's a 1/10 of 1% for mental wellness. I'm just putting it on our radar because we do have a park in my district that's struggling, and I haven't been sure what our recourse is because these, the owners of the mobile home park they're doing it by the law. It's just not ethical.
Yeah.
They're pricing elders out
Yeah.
and requiring crazy changes. I would like us to visit that at some point in time.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, Jeff, I didn't.
No,
did you
appreciate that. No, it's exactly, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice seconds.
No, KRCC.
Review. Yep.
And do you have any other regional
I
boards?
did. Actually, it ties in nicely because one other one was the mayor and I were at, got about 45 people there. Quarterly healthcare continuum meeting that's hosted by the county commissioners. That was the group started by Rob Gelder, and Christine Rolfes is now running it. The last meeting mainly focused on a Johns Hopkins survey that came through. It's on the Kitsap Health
Kitsap Health
Public Health District. Thank you.
Public
Missing the other acronym there. No, yeah.
Kitsap Public Health District.
Health. It's a public health district on the website. There's a headline of new study. And so that was really illuminating. And I mean, there is a lot in there, but a lot of action items. And so the meeting was nice because it basically was, all right, well, Virginia, Franciscan Mason, you kind of got your recommendations from the study and what you need to do. These other studies, who wants to work on it, who's already doing some work on it, getting people collaborating. So I'm real optimistic on that. And I know we talked about it in council before. One of the recommendations was to further investigate a public hospital district for dedicated funding, something ongoing in the community. Because 1/10 of 1% mental health it's great, but from my understanding, it is a lot of more one-off projects. It's not all going towards, oh gosh, we need several million a year to be able to make this program work. So, but there are a lot of the Johns Hopkins study. There's a good executive summary of just a couple pages with recommendations.
Can you send it us?
Yeah, I can email that out. And then the only other regional meeting, the Ferry Town Hall. All four of us we're at.
We were sitting in different places of the room and we didn't talk to each other at all except to say hi.
That's exactly right.
We really were sitting very far apart.
Well attended. Again, major kudos to Greg Nance for his work on that.
Yeah.
And then I forwarded a letter from PSRC Ferry Coalition, highlighting the good work out of the state budget that came out, and that they're going to kind of look at next steps for federal funding, not just so we got good state funding this budget cycle. PSRC wants to start looking at federal funding, and they're going to keep us in the loop on how to help with that. That's it.
Michael, did you want to share about the kids at 911? Oh, wait. He wasn't there. I'll just share really briefly. Maria Jamison Owens is doing the job of two people because for some reason the executive director is not there anymore. We're not even going to talk about that. But she's doing the work of two people. And so there was a discussion about, there was a lot of public support for her to stay in that role instead of an option to go out and do, recruiting. And so I think it was based on that public feedback that Mayor Wheeler suggested that that we form a subcommittee, a personnel committee. But to be fair, there's only one person that the Kids Up 911 board actually has. So the personnel committee will be meeting soon to discuss, the public feedback and what the right options are for recruiting versus hiring within. She must be doing a really amazing job, the job of two people at only a 7% raise in salary, by the way. And the previous executive director was making $250,000 annually. So that's a valuable discussion. And also to find out what the job qualifications really are for that position. So that's mostly what's talked about at Kids Up 911, I think. That's it for my regional meeting reporting. And I apologize. Do you have any? I'm sorry, Jane, go right ahead.
I wanted to talk about the Washington Avenue bike parking issue.
Okay,
Cars
so
parking.
is this a go to the order?
Yeah, because I just want to report on Kids Up Transit.
Okay, so
yeah,
we're doing
so-
regional meetings. Yes, apologies, Anna.
No worries. I think you have a wonderful report on parking, but I get this one done. The Kids Up Transit Long Range Plan was presented on February 20th. It's the most interesting thing is that post-COVID ridership is more spread out over service hours. So like the way people in Bremerton want to use the bus is currently becoming more common across the entirety of the county, which is pretty great. We have several 30-minute buses. Would you like to hear the numbers of the routes?
No, yeah,
Perhaps Michael would be able to skip it, but we have like seven routes, many of which are here in Bremerton that are now on a 30-minute schedule. Woohoo!
We can go to their website and see them all.
You can see all
Easily.
this
Yeah.
stuff. Still biggest problem with Kids Up Transit is there's no data on ridership. They gave up the clickers. They went for a software program. That didn't work.
$1 million project.
Sorry to stutter. They have budgeted a year to implement the new software of the automated personnel count. So sorry that made me choke. I beg your pardon.
I think, do you need some water, Anna?
No, I have some, but
Well, I
thank
think
you.
somebody's getting you some water anyway.
I have water in front of me. So I met with Director Clausen and his suggestion, I have water, thank you, was that since we, the council, are the transportation benefit district, we can unilaterally, simply like in a study session even, just raise the tab fees and double them. We can raise them by another $20 up to $40. This gives us money for things that we would determine that we want. Like I drew up a circulator bus that goes 11th and Callow to 11th and Pacific to the ferry, then back down 6th to Callow. It's a 16-minute route. Of course, it'll muddy up when people get on it. But this would be something that would happen at least 3 times an hour, and it would open up all of our poor, neglected West Bremerton areas. So it's one thing. We could use the money for other things. It's just floating that to you. But dial-a-ride still is not on the cards for Bremerton. That's my Kids Up Transit report.
But that was connected to Sundays.
A circulator bus is something. I'm sorry.
No, I understand a circular bus. Dial-a-ride, I know there was something with dial-a-ride and
Dial-a-ride.
Sunday service.
Dial-a-ride exists in Bremerton for the Sunday service. Yes,
Sunday service only. Okay.
yes, and that's how it's going to be. Yeah, Jeff, you had a question.
So yeah, on that, so is all Sunday bus service off the table until the Climate Commitment Act, we get clarity on it, or is it?
No, we
just
are
us?
still on. It's
Okay, okay.
just was going to expand.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
There's in other jurisdictions that the Sunday one.
Okay.
We're keeping ours.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Other parts of the county.
it's sadly
The Bremerton Climate Commitment Act is secure.
There we go.
Bainbridge Islands. Bainbridge Island will not get Sunday service.
Okay,
They'll just have their circulator buses and their dial-a-rides.
two ferries. And then,
Already
Counting.
oh, it's not 10 o'clock yet. So the circulator bus, which I think is so fantastic. And has there ever been talk about trying to get that even just on a first Friday on a trial basis? Because like we have people in Callow and downtown and Manette.
We are two minds
Yeah.
with but a single thought, because
Okay.
that was exactly my thought. The thing with the circulator bus is that we're kind of in a chicken and an egg situation with development downtown and in other areas where the developers won't build unless we have transit. The transit won't come unless we have the people. The circulator bus is a relatively inexpensive way to bridge the gap over those few years, or, forever if it works out, and we could get red double deckers, which would be quite cool. There is an electric double decker bus and it's red. And so that it would encourage development, and it would serve the people of those developments, and it would reduce the need it could reduce the need for parking spaces. So you
Trying to trial first Friday.
How is,
the first round.
where does Kitsap Transit get the majority of their money?
Sales tax.
Sales tax.
Yep.
Sales tax that everybody in the whole county pays,
Yep.
right? So I don't understand why we in Bremerton have to pay more money to get a service, because they already have those in Bainbridge Island. They have little buses all over the place. So why do we have to?
Bainbridge already increased its tab fees to $40. That's just one thing.
Cambridge also doesn't have the level of regular bus service. So because it wasn't feasible to do regular bus service, that's why they were only given the sort of dial-a-ride in some main lines, but it doesn't circulate through Bainbridge like we have in neighborhoods in the county. So
And also because it's Bainbridge, Jane. It's not a fair world, and it's not a just world. On the other hand, I think that a circulator bus would move forwards towards equity. And should the least wealthy city on the entire Kitsap Peninsula be paying more for services?
when we have the most residents that put in the most money.
Right,
to
right.
sales.
Right, and if I'm putting these things out to you for your consideration.
Okay.
These are things that happen.
Like the Academy Awards.
And
Just so we know.
Or your
people have
consideration.
to eye on
All right.
$20
And
our
the
tax.
only other thing I wanted to say is I drew up a circulator bus
That's right, she told me she did.
for West Bremerton,
She couldn't
because
come up
I
with
am
one.
not familiar with East Bremerton. That was really the reason. I didn't know where the need would be. That's it.
Thank you.
All right.
That's Bainbridge Island bus routes. That's a lot of bus routes.
Yeah. What's the frequency?
They're like ours every hour.
New map, line weighted bus frequency.
I'm indulging y'all tonight because
I want to hear about the Washington.
I know,
Yeah,
I know.
I think I missed that update.
Waiting for this.
Half hour,
Am down.
12, 217, 220, 228.
Let's move on now. No, we can.
No. I have to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
Now we all know how to use the internet.
It's not going to work.
You have an
Out of
iPad
mouth.
too.
You already put it away.
I don't use my.
Oh,
I just can't do it.
Okay, so would you like me to talk about?
They update me on Washington Avenue
Washington Avenue.
because that
Wanna
is
go to the order
so
now?
annoying.
No,
Oh, do we have any other regional meetings? Okay, so now we are on go to the order. Jane, please go ahead.
Okay, so Ms. Monroe has been working very hard to try to get some resolution. From mid-October to the end of December, they wrote 53 citations for people parking in that loading zone, and 34 of them were to 4 different cars. But
Right.
for some reason, which I still don't understand. They're-
34 to 4 cars, you said?
Yes,
Repeat offender.
repeat offenders. And what I don't
Boot 'em.
I don't get, it's like, it's not their car, so they don't have to pay the ticket. I don't understand that, but anyway. So looking at all of the current laws, like our downtown district actually starts at Sixth Street, and that's north of Sixth Street. So it doesn't fall under this repeat offender rule easy enough. But we can change that now that we're changing the downtown district. So Melinda, I'm sorry, she ordered a boot and they're gonna start booting vehicles, but the problem
They'll permanently block the lane.
for 24 hours,
This specific spot. Okay.
for 24 hours. But I put it out on Street Smart and people were like, okay, so,
We should paint it bike lane green, just, you know, just,
oh, the boot?
Yeah, paint the whole car.
But then Public Works is also putting up additional signage. Because right now, there's no parking signs, just the P with the circle on them. And they're only on those decorative lights, so we could pretend that some people don't see that. Or the fire hydrant that's right there. So they're gonna put additional signage up right next to the curb.
Or maybe the multiple
Can we get
tickets
rid of
might
we
be.
just get rid of that little indent.
That's what I suggested.
No, because when you're negotiating right-of-way purchases and stuff. And when they did that project, we didn't have a marked bike lane. So during the negotiation, if I understand it correctly, because we never planned it with the other condos, they put in a place and it was supposed to be used for like moving trucks when somebody was moving in and out. But every single one of those buildings has their own parking lot. But now there's a fire hydrant that got put there. So if the fire department has to access the hydrant, I think they need that pullover. Am I correct on that, Tom?
They need to pull over. I mean.
The area where all the
And then
people are
to-
parking illegally.
Oh, they'll do what they have.
They'll do what they have.
Yeah.
They'll park in the middle.
Go on.
So,
They're not gonna go home.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so Tom,
No what?
this is like a big pain in the neck. Like, we can't just tow people. Is there any thought that maybe we could get rid of this now?
I'd never heard that consideration before. I mean, that was built before Amazon even existed,
Right.
And, but you're right. My recollection was that it was installed for moving trucks. So I don't know. That question is eliminated. It hasn't been posed. I don't know.
It's been posed by the public a lot.
So when the new bike striping went in, which is awesome, the green highlighting, this is the bike lane. At the same time, that 30-minute loading zone was added, was painted on there. And so it's giving people the impression that they can park there. But my reading of the Washington state law, they're within the fire hydrant distance. They shouldn't be within 20 feet of the hydrant.
There
So you have a
used
real
there
right
used to
curve up
be
to the
loading,
hydrant. Yeah.
there used to be signs that said loading zone only. But then in order to do away with sign pollution, some of those signs came down. And that's why they painted on the.
Paint the curb red. It's in 20 feet of the fire hydrant. Paint the curb red. And there is a provision in state code that you can temporarily park with your vehicle running. So,
With a vehicle.
yeah, I've given that suggestion in writing.
I think we
Public
should
Works,
just
I know
get
they're
rid of
busy.
it.
Let's
But-
just get some Sharpies and.
Say it out loud now.
Is there kind of a general interest in people
Yes.
getting rid of that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
gosh, yes.
We'll look into the process.
Wouldn't that make life easier?
Yeah.
Just,
Talk to poor Melinda.
Yeah.
She actually has memorized license plate numbers.
We have been sending in, like, we and people we know have been sending in Bremerton 1 on that over and over and
But
over.
I think they're just mostly going to Melinda, because when I brought it up with Tom about a month ago, he was like, well, just tell him. He hadn't obviously heard
So-
about all that.
Will you bring the information back to Public Works on that idea?
Yeah.
Cool.
Figure
Thank
out.
Awesome.
processes if there is a path forward.
Build a wall.
Just a curve, Michael, just a curve.
Is that, are we wrapping?
We're gonna make the residents.
Are we wrapping up?
I have a,
Hold on just a moment. Are we wrapping up on this item here? We're good for the go to the order? Okay, Anna, please feel free. And then Michael also has a go to the order.
okay, so two quick things. The first one is, let's really encourage staff and do ourselves. Let's look at all the money that we might lose if the Climate Commitment Act is repealed
Yeah.
and make sure we're publicizing that.
Mhm.
Okay, see, so that really was quick. Second thing,
We cannot advocate politically.
we cannot advocate. We can.
Ask a question though. Are we able to do a resolution supporting it as council?
I don't know if we can do a resolution. I'm just talking about like.
Really, left at the brick.
Yes, I believe we can do.
I believe we can do a resolution
Yes.
supporting the.
Well, it will be.
Yes,
When it,
it will be.
For the council to, support or consider supporting,
We would be coming out in opposition to.
Right.
opposition of the repeal,
Yeah.
There's a process that the PDC recommends, and it's basically where it's
opposition to
put
the.
on the agenda, there's an opportunity
Sort of
for
retain.
both sides of the issue,
Okay.
and the council can adopt a position. So
If we would.
I can talk to
Cool. To,
about how to do that.
Well, I
Anna.
think what we really need is the numbers.
Yes, and messaging.
Yeah. So
Project.
second thing is under the heading of, developing the good neighbor page. I put together a bunch of stuff. I sent it to the council staff this afternoon. I had hoped they would forward it. It's like, how do I report an emergency? Find out if I live inside Bremerton city limits, contact my city councilor, find out who's doing what, where and when on streets and other infrastructure, half done. Look up property information, find out who's planning or building what and where, that's a page. Resolve conflict with nature, utilities, how do I learn more about water, how apply for low income, senior, disabled, et cetera. So my question is,
can I reply to that real quick? I think that this is an action step, right, from our good neighbor, from our
Right.
goals and priorities we have not adopted yet. So the reason that it may not have gotten forwarded is that it's not anything that we've like discussed as an action item. But it sounds like once we have our adopted rules, goals and priority, not rules, that once we have an action steps that we can either delegate it to a committee or you can be this like part of a subcommittee to determine that rather than doing a unilateral decision to have something that you like posted.
that's exactly where I was going, which is I was going to appeal to say if there are one or two people who would like to work on this to keep it sub forum. And then when eventually we have adopted the goals and priorities, we'd have this ready to move forward. So that's all.
Yeah, let's talk about it on Friday too. Yeah, thank you for putting all that stuff
Thank you for
together.
taking the initiative and just.
Anybody want to sign up?
No.
All right.
I will.
Okay, Michael.
Boom.
I got Michael.
He's
Michael?
pointing
I'll work
to
with
Jeff.
you. I'll work with you on one condition.
Did you raise your hand for
Can we
that?
do it all at Lulu Haddon?
You've got a sub
That is plain language.
quorum already. I like that. Lulu Haddon, man. Okay,
Okay, all done.
thank you very much,
You
Anna.
had not. Okay, so,
Thank God.
I almost called Tom the other day. This is I think an issue that affects a lot of citizens. It is all in my district. It's not all within the city limits, but I think we need to take a look at the HOV lane that leaves the city from the shipyard.
Yeah.
So I had to go pick somebody up at the airport and, I'm in the lane by myself crawling. And let me tell you, 90% of the cars that went by on my left
We're single.
were single occupant.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
That's supposed to be patrolled by state patrol.
and they can't. And I spent a good bit of time on the phone with Chief of Police,
Wolf.
Chief Wolf, thank you. And like when I got to the, cause I had a lot of time, when I got to the turnoff.
He was on the phone. Were you on the phone?
Oh, yeah. Hands free. But when we got to the turnoff, like the merge and the turnoff to get on the highway, there was a state trooper there. And he's just making sure people aren't whipping him and trying to come in.
Yeah.
And I even look at that and going, how would you patrol that with any regularity? my understanding from the chief is they've reached out to the Navy base and said, you've got to do something to stop the workers from getting out and getting right in that lane.
Yeah.
And they're like, it'll just back up our gate.
Yeah.
I think we should just get rid of it altogether.
Oh, the Navy base?
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, I set him up.
And then we would be.
Get rid of the HOV
So,
lane.
I think we should look at getting rid of the HOV lane altogether. It sounds like the state patrol would support it. It sounds like the city police would support it. And, I don't know.
Path of least resistance.
What I don't understand is like when that went in, were there federal funds used, all that kind of stuff.
It's a state route, it's washed.
So it's just.
Oh, boy, washed
But
up.
when I look at, the other thing, since I have never gone that slow through there, I didn't realize it's only an HOV lane from 3 to 6.
Yes.
I obey that 24/7.
Oh, no, you're missing out.
Well, usually if I'm going somewhere, I get a passenger. But anyways, that wasn't the case the other day. And I just, I've had these thoughts for a while, but really experiencing it. And I just think that all citizens would be served better
Yeah.
if both lanes could go and maybe have a zipper merge at the end. And because to be honest,
On that, would you, Tom?
the folks, the citizens that are being best served by it
Are the ones getting screwed.
are the ones breaking, bold enough
Yeah.
to break the law. And actually, and now here I am talking to Tom going, oh, they're not going to catch me. Nobody enforces it. I'm like, do I get over with his recognizable face? Tom, I have to stay in this.
On the phone.
I need
I'll stay in your lane.
I need a big pickup truck with tinted windows or a baby's.
This is reminding me of. the
Anyways,
superintendent
so I
of
don't,
all the-
Tom, okay, go ahead.
No, I mean, please go on.
Oh, I don't know where we would even start. Is that something you could look
Making a
at?
note of
Yeah,
it.
I can see what the process is for that.
Okay.
People don't usually get rid of HOV lanes.
I know it.
So, yeah.
It is totally I'm so pro HOV lane. I love that you can get now all the way to Seattle in an HOV lane. Well, not Highway 16, but on I-5 and things. And, but it's not, it's counter. It is making it worse, except for the
But
people who are bold enough to
Maybe
break
not
the rule.
between 3 and 6.
Oh, no, it's worse.
Okay.
Oh, no, because we are all stacked up and all these single people
Yeah.
Yeah.
are flying ahead. And this way it would just be everybody.
So it sounds like Tom's got it written down. So he's gonna find out the process and probably talk to Public Works.
I have
Or you can
another
email all of us
on
or
that.
something. How do you think it's best to handle that?
Tom, did you already have your Navy meeting? You said you'd meet with them once
It's
quarter.
quarterly, and last time we had it, it was recent. So it's a couple months out.
Because Tom had come up with a solution for them. All they had to do was put 2 cones in a lane and would work, but the gate guards didn't want to do that. So if we can't get rid of the HOV lane, which is weird.
Well, we can get rid of it in the city, right?
The pushback's gonna come from motorcycles, from, kids have transit that go through there, right? But the shipyard buses.
Yeah.
Those
Buses.
folks.
Well, and then if that's the case,
Yeah.
if we can't get rid of it,
How about a bus line?
then I think as a city, we need to really
Tell
double
the
down with the state and say it needs to be enforced.
I've
Or
always
tell the
wondered.
shipyard they have to enforce it as they're getting out of the gate.
Yeah, they're not.
Tom said it's 2 cones. That's all they need.
And remember when we did that shipyard tour, one of the things they told us was that people don't take those buses that go from the shipyard, right? That would eliminate so many of those single person drivers. Because there was no enforcement in the HOV.
I don't remember that, but, okay.
Well,
They could
there
just
is
do
no enforcement.
they could
That's
do
the
just-
fact.
tire spikes. Just fix the whole problem.
Okay.
All right, so are we good?
We don't hire.
0 to 60, baby. And on that note, is there any other good of the order for tonight? I really enjoyed you guys, you got really used to short meetings, so I'm just gonna do a good of the order real quick and say, I really enjoyed tonight. And it's been it's a complicated issue, and we don't have to go to war over it. I love what we came up with at the end, which is let's hear from the public. Let's go back and talk about it some more. Let's be open to options, but also believe in the dream and the vision. that people brought to us. So thank you very much for all of that. And with that, I adjourn the meeting. The next one will be Wednesday, March 20th, beginning at 5:30. I just adjourned, but I forgot to make this announcement. In the first floor meeting chambers with a remote option available by Zoom, and the public is welcome to attend in person or remotely. And any special accommodations may be requested by calling the city clerk at 360-473-5323 at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Now the meeting is actually
Yeah, I want to make sure. everyone-
Recording stopped.